Hi, seventh graders. I hope you had a good Easter and a nice long weekend. Today we're going to be looking at the American Homefront. This will kind of kickstart our week looking at various things that were going on within the United States. We have nothing to fear but fear itself. This is the famous line that comes from President Roosevelt's speech that he gave to Congress after the attack on Pearl Harbor. And at this time, it's when he's asking Congress to allow the U.S. to declare war on Japan. Eventually, this will also lead to Germany and then Italy declaring war on the United States. If you need a little refresher, Germany, Italy, and Japan are part of the Axis powers. They're all working together. So when we declare war on Japan, consequently, Japan's two friends will then declare war on us. Executive Order 9066. In the US, Americans are afraid that Japan would target the West Coast. If you're having a hard time picturing this, the West Coast is over where California is. Tanks and soldiers are sent there to watch and protect the coast, but the reality is that we could do very little to defend ourselves at this time. There's a lot of misfortune going on the home front as the war begins for us. Off the East Coast, Germany is sinking our merchant ships with their submarines. They believe that the U.S. is assisting Great Britain and France, and so they have a lot of hatred and a lot of vengeance towards us right from the beginning. At the same time, we are instantly thrown into a war with Japan, and as a result, because we are not prepared, we're losing lots of battles in Asia to begin with. Patriotism is one of those things that we really talked quite a bit about with World War One and how, because the World War One was not personal, we lacked a sense of patriotism towards the war. And World War Two is very, very, very different. Prior to the war, we only had about 300,000 men enlisted in the U.S. Army. After the Pearl Harbor attack, we are going to see American men just flock in droves to go and sign up. Enlistment will go up. Roughly 24% of American men enlisted in the war, and we're going to see 15 million men willingly join. And that, again, that doesn't even include a draft. So when this becomes personal, we respond in a very different way. Contributions. Americans are asked by the government to do a variety of things: ration, buy war bonds, enlist, and help in the industry. Again, these are four things that we talked quite a bit about with World War One, and they reappear with World War Two. If you're wondering why this is underlined on your screen, you should have a notebook paper out, and you should be jotting down these things that are underlined. You have a quiz tomorrow. You could take it right away after this if you really want to. Then you can have tomorrow off of social studies. It's really up to you. Either way, you have 10 questions based on everything that is underlined in this lecture. Ration goods, looking at these items a little bit more closely, we see the government really step in. They're not just saying, oh, you should ration. It legit becomes a thing. There are ration stamps. If you are not rationing, it's really frowned upon. People will kind of just have it out for you because this is during World War II, we are under the mindset that we're all in this together. Everybody's going to suffer or have to give up a little bit, but we're going to do it together as one country because we need to win this war. Farms are producing as much food as possible. However, a lot of that food is going to the British and Russian soldiers and citizens because of the starvation going on in Europe. So despite the fact that farms are mass producing items, we still have to ration what we're consuming here because we need to send it off over to our allies so that they can continue to help us fight the war. Labor contributions. One of the big things, again, they want people to go and work in the industry. By 1944, there's going to be over 14 million unionized Americans, meaning they work in a union industry. That's 3 times the number of what we had during 1941, which is kind of at the beginning of the war for us. Nearly 6 million of these 14 million unionized Americans were women and 2 million were minority. So prior to all this, women and people of minority are the minority within the workforce. However, during World War II, these two groups of minorities will become the majority in the workforce. Again, everybody is so essential to helping us win World War II that all of a sudden stereotypes and skin color and gender, it doesn't matter anymore. Again, we're all in it together. That's that mindset pushing us through World War II. The War Production Board, FDR will create the War Production Board to kind of guide the US through various things. They're going to decide which companies would convert to wartime production and then how to best allocate raw materials to those industries. We see a variety of collection drives happening. They're going to basically collect anything they can: scrap iron, tin cans, paper rags, cooking fat, whatever it might be, they will take. Um, Households also have a set allocation of scarce goods like gas, meat, shoe, sugar, coffee, things to that nature. Here's one of my favorite propaganda posters from World War II. Again, it goes back to that concept of, only using your ration of a scarce good such as gas. If you ride alone, you ride with Hitler. Join a car sharing club today. Again, that concept that conserve fuel, have a ride sharing buddy. And if you don't, then obviously you don't really care about the US and you're supporting Hitler. Very extreme, a little comical, but it definitely worked on the American people. And that's the most important thing. These are those ration stamps. Ration stamps are interesting. A lot of people have a hard time understanding them today, especially younger kids. Ration stamps are not money. Okay, so if you wanted to buy coffee, because coffee is a ration good, you would take your ration stamp and your cash. You'd go to the store, you would pay for your coffee with the cash, but you would also turn in your ration stamp. If you don't have the ration stamp, you cannot buy the coffee. Okay, again, stamps are not money, but without them, you can't buy anything. Shift in production. The American industry had to go from peacetime production to wartime production. This generally takes quite a bit of time. Americans are going to convert their auto industry into a war industry. The automobile plants will start producing tanks, planes, boats, and command cars, and a lot of other industries will convert to war related supplies as well. Go ahead and hit pause if you need to finish this note. We kind of have something of a production miracle. Boeing will go from creating regular airplanes to bombers and fighter jets. Gun makers like Colt went from hunting rifles to machine guns, flamethrowers, and rifles. You also see Chevrolet up here with a war ad. Very, very, very important during World War II. At the same time, when we're in full war mode, the US is producing weapons faster than anyone around thought that it would or could. In 1 month, the US was able to produce up to 4,000 tanks and 4,500 planes. Again, that's a substantial amount every single day. You're looking at nearly, or well, probably over 100. That's quite a bit. Ship production also increased dramatically to help protect our coasts. That's the chart that we see there on the left side. Statistics here, just a few quick facts for you. We're looking at individual aircraft and what's being produced within this 4-year span. Quite a few numbers. Unintended benefit. Women enjoyed the workforce, or excuse me, women were able to join the workforce before the war. Only about 3 million worked in the United States. And this is where we see kind of that stereotype really become apparent. Before World War II, a lot of women were just housewives and raising their families. And I shouldn't say they were just, because that is actually really hard work. I am learning that during the quarantine. I would be a terrible stay-at-home mom. So kudos to anybody who does it, because it's definitely not for me. But again, back to the topic at hand. Women are starting to leave their roles from the house and they are jumping into the workforce. The workforce is desperate for workers to produce weapons, and women will replace the men that went to war. The really cool part is that as millions of women will enter the industrial workforce for the first time, they start to earn a respectable income. It's still less than men, but it's quite a bit of money, and it's enough to support a family. We are going to see over 350,000 women also join the military and act as nurses and things like that on the front lines. Success on the home front. The war will provide a lift to the US economy. Jobs were abundant, and despite rationing and shortages, people had money to spend. The biggest thing is that by the end of the war, America was the world's dominant economic and military power. I apologize if you hear my dog drinking water and Troy in the background. We're going to keep trying to truck along though. Economic gains, we see quite a few good things happen. Unemployment will drop to only 1.2%. Wages will go up by 35%. Farmers will benefit from production because it doubles. And as a result, by doubling their production, their income triples. This is huge following the big setbacks that they had after World War One. Population shift. We are going to see more than 1 million newcomers pour into California between 1941 and 1944. And at the same time, African Americans will shift from the South to the North. We've already seen this wave once in American history, and we're going to see it again because now jobs are available in those industrial plants, and it's going to draw this group of people out of the South and up north. GI Bill helping the returning vets. 7.8 million vets will receive a paid education once they come back from World War II. The government puts this in place as a way to kind of ease the men back into civilian life. They assume if they can provide them with a free education, these men will not just get the degree, but they'll also go and find a professional job and join the workforce in the United States. Minorities in war. I really encourage you to do a little bit of reading on these particular groups of people because I'm just giving you a very blunt, straightforward piece of information here. Native Americans. There's roughly 25,000 Native Americans who fought in World War II. This group will create an unbreakable secret code based on the Navajo language, and it's really this group of individuals that kind of helps set the United States up for success. African Americans. We have 1 million African Americans that fought in World War II. At the beginning of the war, Army units were still segregated. We're going to see Truman, who takes over after FDR, he will desegregate the armed forces. Many of the African Americans, if they're not fighting in the war, are working in factories in the North. Mexican Americans, we have over 300,000 of them that fought in World War II. The government will recruit quite a few of them directly from Mexico to work in the agricultural fields here in the United States. World War II and its impact on the U.S. in relation to the Great Depression. World War II is kind of one of those big things that really does pull us out of the Great Depression. There's quite a few notes you're going to take, so just feel free to pause the video at any time. Jobs. We see 17 million jobs created and wages increase. Despite FDR's efforts to create millions of jobs, World War II is really what's going to save us because it's those increased wages that really lift America out of the Great Depression. Additionally, unemployment will drop from 25% down to 1.2%. This is kind of the answer to our prayers in a very unfortunate way. Despite the fact that jobs are available, again, having something personal, right? That attack on Pearl Harbor is what's really going to force Americans to go and find something to do to contribute to the war effort. And because they feel that call, that unemployment goes down. Government. Americans will have a greater trust in the government overall. FDR will keep up his fireside chats, which is really, really, really important to the American people. Again, it just makes them feel like they're unified. And that's really important at this time. Production will increase by 96%. And it's this production trend that we're going to see kind of transcend into the 50s and 60s. The 50s are a super interesting time in American history, and I look forward to having you do a little bit of research on that down the road. We see all of these like modern day inventions that we still have that were designed to make the American life better and easier, and a lot of that again comes from this increase in production. Spending. Due to an increase in wages, Americans will have money to spend for the first time since the Great Depression. And this is what's really going to help us. Again, when there's money in that pocket, in your pockets, and you have money to go and spend and push out into the economy, it just makes everything flow a lot easier and a lot better. It's going to be interesting to see, kind of segueing off of this, the stimulus checks that'll be coming in because of the coronavirus, how that will impact the economy. Is it really going to kind of boost us and make sure that people are still pumping money into the economy, or is it going to be put into safekeeping? The problem is that if it's put into safekeeping, then it doesn't do what it's designed to, and that's to help, again, keep the economy flowing. All right, that's what I have for you. Today, again, you should have watched this lecture, taken your notes. Tomorrow, you have a notes quiz. And then on a Thursday, you're doing some research on Japanese internment camps that were located here in the United States during World War II. And on Friday is going to take a little bit of time, I think. But if you maybe start earlier in the week, it shouldn't take as long. Um, Friday, you're watching 3 different Disney videos, and then answering some questions on Google Forms. So I think overall, Friday is going to take you about a half hour ish or so. But again, with the activities I set up for the other 3 days this week, I think it all kind of balances out. I am sorry that I rushed through this. I got a crying baby that I need to go tend to, but I hope all is well, and I hope I get to see some of you this week. Take care, be safe, stay home. I miss you.